Mm-hmm. Yeah, all that data, but not much wisdom buried in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so I guess you guys must have been really angry when it became, well, at least it began to seem as though the Israelis knew more about what was going to happen than you guys, at least these 5 guys in the white van.
Well, yeah, and possibly the art students, too. There was an interesting article that I did not use in my article because I couldn't verify it. Shortly after 9/11, the German, very respectable German weekly news publication, Die Zeit, had an article about 9/11, and they interviewed an Israeli intelligence officer. And the intelligence officer reportedly said that if the art students had been allowed to stay in the United States a bit longer, they might have been able to stop 9/11. And as I say, I didn't use it because it was something I couldn't verify. I didn't know who the intelligence officer was by name. I couldn't find that out. But, of course, if it's true, it's an admission by the Israeli government that they had a massive spying program going on in the United States, and it was directed against Arabs and specifically against these hijackers.
Well, you know, Christopher Ketchum, in his piece that he did for Counterpunch, speculates, and he calls it speculation in the piece, that perhaps the CIA had outsourced the monitoring of at least the 2 guys that came into San Diego from Malaysia to the Mossad, rather than trusting the FBI with the job, which I could see that as a reasonable conclusion that someone in the CIA would come to not trust the FBI, but that he speculated this because there was a meeting between some Israeli officials and the FBI in August of 2001, and then just the next day or 2 days later, these 2 guys' names, I believe Al-Midhar and his buddy, appeared on the list, on the watch list or the some kind of look out for these guys list of the FBI.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that information was eventually passed by the CIA. I think if you see the timeline on all this,
mm-hmm.
I find it implausible that the agency would outsource to Mossad because I assure you, inside the agency, Mossad is not thought of very well.
In all quarters?
Well, no, the political level will always, do whatever they're told to do, but the working level CIA officers are not particularly fond of Mossad. They have felt for a long time that Mossad, in spite of agreements and everything like that, doesn't ever play fair, and that the intelligence that comes out of Mossad is usually bogus, and it's essentially produced to keep the United States relying on Israel, and the information itself has been viewed as quite doubtful.
I remember reading in By Way of Deception by Victor Ostrowski, and I don't really know a whole lot about the guy, whether he's considered to be very credible or not, but he wrote that their attitude inside the Mossad is that if the Americans know something that they need to know, well, they better tell us. But if they know something the Americans need to know, they're big boys, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, I would consider that to be true, yeah.
Yeah. And could you comment on Ostrowski in general, do you know?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about him. I have read the book, although it was a number of years ago that I read it, and I found at the time that what he was saying was quite credible. The Israelis, for much of their history, were indeed a country under siege. And I can see if you're a small country, you're relying on your intelligence service, you've got to play the game as if everybody is a potential enemy. I can understand that. But the fact is that's not been true in Israel for the last 40 years or so. And and Israel is now the dominant military and economic power in the Middle East, no question about it. And these realities don't have to stay in place. And that's why I feel that the Israeli spying against the United States is just, at this point in time, is just not justified. And for the United States to sit back and let it happen, one of the things we haven't discussed is that the spying is largely focused on military technology and types of information that the Israelis then use in their own armaments industry, and they sell to other people like the Chinese. So this stuff winds up in places we don't want it to wind up, and then you have American companies paying for all the research and development costs, and the Israelis stealing it, and they wind up with the product, and they can compete against U.S. companies very effectively. So the U.S. companies are at a disadvantage. I'm not a great fan of defense contractors, but insofar as we do need their services, this is not good for the United States.
Well, and this is something that was a big scandal a couple of years back, right, that the Israelis had given some very highly advanced early warning radar systems to the Chinese?
They gave some missile technology, Sidewinder missile technology. They were trying to sell very advanced surveillance aircraft technology to the Indians. And this was back, I think, in 2005. And the Pentagon actually, in one of its rare standing up to the Israeli moments, told them that they wouldn't let it happen, and they actually started to cut off contacts with the Israeli officers and things like that to show their disapproval. So the Israelis backed off on it.
Yeah. Can Israeli or the Israel lobby's influence in Washington be overstated? I mean, the spectacle of the AIPAC conference where McCain, Clinton, and Obama, all three went and just bowed and scraped, and Obama even advanced what had been off the table for a long time, the idea that all of Jerusalem belongs to the Israelis. I guess they're going to rebuild the temple now and all this stuff, according to him.
Well, I guess so. I mean, it's can the question, can the lobby, the strength be overstated? I don't think so. As long as one is only looking at Middle Eastern policy, which is obviously what they're interested in. No, I think they have an absolute stranglehold on the policy right now, and they have the stranglehold in both parties and also in the U.S. media.
Do you think that Stephen Rosen and Keith Weissman, who were the indicted co-conspirators with the convicted spy Larry Franklin, will ever go to trial?
I'm beginning to doubt if they ever will, because it just seems to keep dragging on and dragging on and dragging on. And I know it's the desire of the administration to make this thing go away, and I would imagine a Democratic administration coming in, or indeed John McCain coming in, to continue the Republican control would be similarly inclined. I think they would make every effort to make it go away.
Should we consider it a miracle that these guys were ever, or that Franklin was ever prosecuted, that this story ever came out at all?
Well, Franklin, of course, worked for the Pentagon, so that was a prosecution of somebody for leaking secrets. But these other two guys, of course, worked for AIPAC, and that's a lot more sensitive than the Pentagon. So. So, yeah, I'm surprised. Actually, I'm surprised that there ever even was a prosecution.
Goodness gracious. All right, well, let me ask you one more thing. You broke the story in 2005 in the American Conservative magazine that the war plans that Dick Cheney was having the Air Force draw up for possible strikes on Iran included the possible use of nuclear weapons on them, and you told me, I guess probably about a year ago, I think, Phil, that there were two possibilities for the use of nuclear weapons in a war against Iran. The first would be to try to get at the underground nuclear facilities, say, for example, at Natanz, buried under 85 feet of granite or so. And then the second would be to basically, I think you said, hold them in our back pocket in order to tell the Iranians, don't you dare fight back against us in any effective way or we'll nuke you. Do you believe that is still the case, that this kind of strategy is included in Dick Cheney's war plans for Iran?
Yeah, I think both of those elements are still there. I think there are some targets like the not just Natanz, but the Iranians have been preparing for this attack for 5 years, and they have a lot of their command and control and other facilities deep underground, apparently. So this would be a way to neutralize those sites. And so I suspect it's still very much in the war plan, whether this is a first strike concept or something that's might be used later, I don't know. But certainly I think that the threat of the United States escalating if Iran doesn't roll over is still very high, and I think that would include the threat of using nuclear weapons if the Iranians were very successful in their retaliation. Say the Iranians are able to cut the supply line from Kuwait up into Iraq, and we have 100,000 plus troops kind of besieged. I don't know any better way to describe it. We might threaten nuclear weapons in a situation like that. I can easily see that.
And you have sources inside the national security bureaucracy who are indicating to you that that's actually the case.
Well, I have had sources tell me in the past that the nuclear option would be there with Iran if the situation began to get out of control. So that's what they were saying. What they're saying right now, I'm not sure.
All right, everybody, that's Philip Giraldi, writes Smoke and Mirrors at antiwar.com. His new piece in the American Conservative magazine is called The Spy Who Loves Us. pay no mind to the Mossad agent on the line. Yeah, I'll try to ignore him, Phil.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for your time today.
Thank you, Scott.
I've been 10,000 miles in the mouth of a graveyard, and it's a hard rain. You're gonna fall.